Time to abandon ship.
Oh no!
Here we go!
Can I persuade you to join us for a drink? It's a tradition.
Here, here.
Jar Jar, homie, my main man, quickly. Before the Separatists attack, get into the escape pod.
Hey! If this is escape, then we're the pod. Use the
Hey, welcome back to the Escape Pod. I'm your host, Josh, and today I have a very special co-host on, a good friend of mine. His name is Calvin. We're going to be tearing apart an article that I found online written by Leon Miller for Screenrant about 10 things in the prequels, technology-wise, that shouldn't have been in the prequels. I'm going to be taking you guys all down in the escape pod to Nar Shadaa. There's a little cantina that we're going to meet him up in, and there's going to be some music playing in the background. We're just going to have a drink and have a good time just ripping it apart. So let's get down there, shall we?
Another happy landing.
There he is right there, right next to the music. Hey, man.
Hey.
Hey, thanks for meeting us here.
Thanks for having me in the
No,
escape
yeah,
pod.
no worries. Pleasure to have you.
This is a surprise for me.
Yeah, so this is kind of a surprise.
Let's do it.
Okay.
I'm ready.
All right, number 10, droidicas. If there's one thing Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith do a great job on, it's illustrating that clone troopers are vastly superior to battle droids. So, we totally understand why these robot soldiers were considered obsolete by the time the events of the original Star Wars trilogy rolled around. But what about droidicas? Packing serious heat along with shield generators, these crab-like mobile weapon platforms had few weaknesses and proved a handful to virtually any opponent that included Jedi Knights. To be honest, droidicas are far more effective than any frontline grunt, robotic or otherwise, seen in episodes 4 through 6, which means they're probably too high-tech to belong in the prequels.
If you had that technology at the time, then why would you switch to, like, men?
The Empire's cheap. The Empire doesn't spend a lot of money. So even compared to the clones that the Republic spent money on, their armor is just a lot cheaper. They moved away from, like, paying for a clone army and started relying more on, like, volunteers and recruiting. Yeah. So I mean, as far as their government goes, I think the Empire's a lot cheaper than the Separatist Alliance was.
Right.
And the Separatist Alliance has some pretty wealthy allies.
And they're profiting on it.
They were really, they're profiteering not only on the war, but, like, they had the banking clan on their side, like, they had the Trade Federation on their side, like, they had some pretty wealthy allies. So, it's not that they didn't have the money to fund these things. I think they just didn't want to fund the project to have droids around, and it just didn't go with their design language, I guess. Like, when you look at the Empire, it's like droids just don't really fit in. Like, you get medical droids and probe droids, but that's about it. But yeah, I think what they think is too far-fetched is that there's almost no other thing like it in the prequels, so they think it's, like, out of question to have like a droid with a personal shield generator.
Right.
I would like to know how long personal shield generators have been around by this point, but they do show up in not in the films, but in canon. Like, they do show up in the Battlefront 2 campaign. The hero of the story and some of the characters, like, you do get personal deployable shield generators like around your character and stuff.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. They roll at about up to 75 kilometers per hour supposedly. So, like, that's pretty fast. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, it's a bit of a, like, they are pretty advanced. That's for sure.
They seem pretty advanced for, like, how long it took them to build the Death Star.
yeah, they
like,
do.
If it took them that long to build the Death Star, then they should have just been.
They seem pretty advanced. I'll never be on, like, the side of the fence that says, like, they shouldn't be in the prequels, because, like, I think they're, like, they don't seem out of place. Basically, like, they don't seem out of place, but, like, they do seem pretty advanced. But
yeah, for sure.
The whole shield generator thing, actually, that's something that comes later down the list. But Number 9 is the scimitar. So otherwise known as the Sith infiltrator. The scimitar was a starship piloted by Darth Maul.
Oh, that
in
was his
The
like
Phantom
interceptor
Menace.
thing.
Yeah, that was his ship, his
yeah.
stealth.
I had the
ship
Lego. I had
kind
the
of
Lego
thing.
one of that.
Oh, you had the Lego.
Yeah, actually, I don't remember if I had it or if I like built it myself because it's so cool. It's like a TIE fighter, like a TIE fighter with like a long nose, right? Like
Yeah.
it's almost like a TIE fighter.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah,
Darth
it's got,
Vader's TIE
here's a
fighter, but
picture.
it's like a long
It's
nose.
got like the wings.
Oh
and
yeah, that thing was so
it's
cool.
got like a ball.
It's like a big ball.
Yeah, yeah.
Big ball cockpit. So that was too advanced. Yeah, that thing didn't really fit the aesthetic of anything else in the show, but it did fit his aesthetic. Like it fit Darth Maul's character perfectly.
It says here that it's implausibly cutting edge for its day, but a
But
quick
didn't it have
flip-
like a silver ship? Like didn't Queen Amidala flew around in like a baller like chrome?
Yeah, well,
ship?
that's just it. Like every
everything was-
society has their own like not every ship in the galaxy
So it was
is
too
a
advanced
Millennium
for
Falcon,
someone who
right?
wasn't a queen.
Well, the part of the ship that they're saying is too advanced is the ship's cloaking device. So the ship has a cloaking device, according to...
Did it ever reference that in the movie though?
No, it referenced it in canon in Darth Maul, Son of Dathomir, which was the first comic book series that was canonized by
Right.
Disney.
Okay.
And it takes place during the Clone Wars. And the ship is revealed to have a personal cloaking device, which, according to Captain Nita in The Empire
I
Strikes
was just gonna say,
Back,
no ship that small has a cloaking device.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah,
but this is not the first time that we've seen a ship this size have a cloaking device. There was a Clone Wars episode where Anakin has to take an experimental craft down to the surface of a planet called Christophsis and make a supply run. And it's a very, very early prototype, about the same size as the scimitar, and that also had a personal cloaking device. But there were certain limitations to it, so it's not like it worked, just astoundingly. It's not like they could leave it on all the time. Like, it drained some of the energy, so they weren't able to fly as fast with this thing on.
Right.
It was a bit like a submarine in that
And
sense,
this
like
thing
when it was
just
cloaked.
didn't matter.
This ship is basically has the same kind of tech in it. What they're saying is like, is it too far-fetched to be in the prequels if, according to Captain Nita, he believes that there's no ship that size that's capable of having a cloaking device. But yeah, I don't think Captain Nita knows everything in the galaxy, and
He's pretty smart.
Captain Nita's a pretty smart guy, but
he's the only one who didn't get choked out, right?
Is he,
Wasn't he the only one who ended up living until the end?
no,
no, he does.
Captain Nita died.
No, he does.
Captain Nita
He
was
does
the
choke
fool.
him. Yeah,
I
he's
think.
the one who's like,
I think Captain Nita was the guy.
apology accepted. Captain
Yeah,
Nita.
yeah, you got yeah. Apology accepted, Captain
Apology
Nita.
accepted. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, he was
So
a bit.
he wasn't
of a
that
fool.
smart.
He wasn't that smart. No.
He ended up dying on the floor of the.
I also think
Stars.
it in some ways could be considered a bit of a throwaway line, almost like an excuse, because he's like trying to find the Millennium
Right.
Falcon. It's like, what? No ship that size has a
Yeah.
cloaking device,
He's
and like
covering his
it's
own
just
ass.
he's
Yeah.
covering his own.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this ship probably just
Screw
like
that guy. This ship is near.
outpiloted this
Easily
captain
it
of a
is.
Star
Yeah, yeah.
Destroyer and landed on the ship, and they
He's
can't
looking for
figure out where
scapegoat.
it
He's
went.
looking for scapegoat, and it's the advanced technology of the time. So.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. Like
Okay,
I
Leon,
think
you're wrong about that one.
just
Sorry.
about that one reference there, like as proof that apparently the technology shouldn't exist.
Right.
Not only does it not reference the Clone Wars at all, but that one piece of reference isn't enough to convince me that it's like too far fetched to have, because it is a very highly experimental craft,
Right.
and I mean, like, I can buy it.
Yeah.
Like not only is Darth Maul's master like a highly esteemed senator with a crap ton of money, but I think the Sith have always been very resourceful.
Yeah.
Very resourceful. That's kind of their thing. So for them to get a hold of like experimental technology was very in character.
Right.
I don't think that it's too far fetched to say that a personal cloaking device on an experimental
Right.
craft is like out of the question. But number 8, clone trooper armor. Armor, yes. They're plastoid armor.
Plasticine?
Plastoid.
Is it
I think it's
plasticine
like
or
plasticine, maybe.
That's
Plastoid.
always like the thing that they call like hard.
Yeah, let's
Plasticine, right?
clone trooper armor. Let's take a
It's
look.
like the it's like plastic mixed with metal. something.
Yeah. Oh,
Carbon fiber. It's like
fitting
Kevlar.
plastoid. I think it's like
Plastoid.
it's a Star Wars
So it's
term
like Kevlar.
for
Body armor.
plastic-based Kevlar, basically in a way.
okay.
So, but yeah, as we've
Kevlar
seen in the
weave,
movies, it can't
Classic.
take a direct hit. It's good for like, electric stuff
Right.
and yeah, but yeah, it's not the greatest at
Okay, so
blocking.
why
blocking
does he think that that's too advanced?
So it says here that the Mandalorian armor sported by the likes of Jango and Boba Fett will never go out of style. Even though its basic design dates back 500 years, not only is the distinctive protective kit highly effective despite its ancient origins, it was purpose-built with fighting Jedi in mind. Remember, but its cultural significance means that no Mandalorian would ever think of replacing it. The same level of reverence shouldn't apply to outsiders, however. So why does the Empire and later the First Order persist with Mandalorian-inspired armor designs for so long? After all, there's very little obvious improvement between the clone trooper armor that debuts in Episode 2 and the stormtrooper outfits that supersede them from Episode 4 onwards. So either armor fabrication techniques didn't improve in over 50 years, or clone trooper armor was much better than it had any right to begin with. I've got a small problem with this because the 50 years, I don't know what kind of 50 years
Maybe
he's
it's
talking
30
about.
years, 40 years, whatever.
I mean, there's like 19 years between
he's saying
3
that
and
like
4.
he's saying that like the armor never improved. But I think
No, I
for
don't
the
think the
most
armor
part,
didn't improve,
yeah, I
no.
think for
Yeah.
the most part it was all just like story driven. It was like if a stormtrooper needed to die instantly, then they would get shot and die instantly.
Yeah, totally,
If
yeah.
they needed to take a
Yeah.
hit, then they would take a hit.
Yeah, I don't think the armor has anything. Well, I mean, like, I think what he's saying is more so though is why
wouldn't they advance it in some
do
way?
they persist on maintaining the inspired design by the
Oh,
Mandalorian? I
They
think what they're
changed,
getting
though.
at,
They changed
they
so
do
much.
change quite a bit, and like
changed a ton.
in the first phase, I can see them like the T
Mandalorian, yeah.
visor Mandalorian
Yeah, yeah.
look going on.
And then the
second
episode
phase,
3,
though-
they're like half and half.
Yeah,
And
like
then
in the second
episode
phase, it was very like half stormtrooper, half clone
yeah,
trooper,
yeah.
and and like I don't know, I don't think that.
All that is it means that the designer who did the original one was under contract, and they could only use his designs for so long. They had to hire a new designer, and they wanted it to
Yeah.
look the same, and so he made it look as close as he could without ripping the other guy off.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it comes down to money. It's like, well, it's much cheaper to make something that's a lot more simple, less shiny bits.
I really like the phase
2
one.
eyes instead of like a big, huge like T
T-visor, yeah.
visor. It's much cheaper.
Yeah.
Empire's cheap, like you said.
Yeah, Empire is cheap, yeah, for sure. But, so why does the Empire or later the First Order persist with Mandalorian-inspired armor designs for so long? I think the answer is they don't.
Yeah, they totally didn't.
Yeah.
It's just body armor.
Yeah.
It's just white. Oh yeah, right. It's white.
It's white, yeah. And I don't know, like I don't look at a stormtrooper and think like that helmet over there does not look like Boba Fett.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Not
So, okay, number 7, Gungan
Leon.
blast shields. Gungan
Oh
blast
yeah,
shields.
that one. Yeah, that one I definitely agree with.
Okay,
Like,
yeah,
how did
so
these
here's
like
the thing.
prehistoric, like nomadic, like animal frog people have like this advanced, like
Well, that goes hand in hand with how their homes are set up underwater.
yeah, they have a super advanced technology. For
Yeah,
how
they have
dumb
very
they
advanced
are.
technology. But the Naboo culture in general, I think, has this grip on technology in the way other people don't.
I don't think so. They lived in gardens, right? They lived in like where did they film that? Sicily?
Because
They
their
lived
ships
in, like,
are all very
shiny.
sleek. Yeah, I think it's just
true.
part of, like, it's weird. It is weird to think like, oh wow, like these like very simple living people have like the most advanced technology out
that's
there.
interesting.
But it's interesting that it follows through. It's not just the shields; it's everything.
You know what I think that is? That's just the culture that discovered fire. Right? It's like,
It
it's
is.
like
It
anyone could
actually
have
is.
discovered fire,
Well,
and
that's-
then they'd be more advanced than all the other cultures at the
It's
time.
it's
They discovered
interesting that you bring that
technology.
up because Naboo farms plasma. So when Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan and Maul are fighting down in the lower levels of Naboo, you have like these towers of plasma going up,
Oh,
and
yeah.
and that's actually it's not like the core of the planet. It's more or less like they're literally like farming
Interesting.
this energy.
So
and
it's like a prehistoric or like a non-civilized people who like live on a gold mine.
yeah,
And they don't
yeah,
realize
pretty
the
much.
gold is
Yeah.
valuable, so they just use it for like making everything.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
they make all these shields with this plasma stuff.
Yeah, they're able
They don't have to be
to
smart to use
make
it.
good shields like with this plasma, exactly. So I think I mean, something happened between the Gungans and the Boo people at one point where they kind of separated in terms of like living in.
We saw no light in Naboo.
Yeah. Yeah. So like they kind of like have a bit of a cold shoulder for each other. Yeah. But I think before that, these two cultures worked in unison quite well.
Yeah.
And I believe that their technology went, like their design language across both things that come from the Naboo people and the Gungans are very close in design. So when they take that little ship from the Gungan
symbiotic
home,
relationship.
symbiotic relationship,
Yeah.
So when Qui-Gon and Jar Jar they get into that
like
the
creature, fish,
Naboomba thing or
the fish spaceship.
Yeah, the fish
submarine.
the fish submarine. Yeah. It looks like something that belongs on Naboo.
Yeah,
like
totally,
there's the viewports
It's
are made
inspired
of
by,
viewports
fish.
are made of shields, not glass, right?
Right.
So like there's a lot of emphasis on the fact that they have this tech.
Yeah.
So they say, oh actually no, I already read it, but no, did I read it? No, I didn't read it. No, I didn't read it. So this article says, it's fair to say that in Naboo's amphibious race, the Gungans aren't exactly the most beloved alien species in Star Wars canon. I agree with that.
No, we love them.
No, we love. I love Jar Jar. I love Jar Jar. But they can at least lay claim to one genuinely impressive invention: the portable blast shield generator. Capable of withstanding a blaster cannon bombardment indefinitely, these movable defenses are arguably the best protection against a land-based assault seen in the entire saga. Yeah, we have one
and those,
glaring
EMP
flaw.
thing is that like just disabled any speeders, right?
Yeah.
Those
there's
tanks,
that.
those brown tank things.
Yeah. So it says here that they have one glaring flaw. Gungan shields only work against energy blasts. Infantry units can muscle through with comparative ease, yet this shortcoming can easily be mitigated with proper strategic thinking.
Right.
And the only reason we can think of why this tech this good doesn't appear in the original trilogy is that the franchise creator George Lucas simply hadn't dreamed it up yet. Do you think this is also partially just a VFX thing? Just like that they couldn't have physical looking shields.
Oh, I see. Oh, yeah, maybe. I mean, but that's the thing. They never really went back to that, right? Like even in the later prequels, they never had physically visible shields, right? Like with the
let me think.
when R2-D2 is fixing the shield generator on top of like that command, like that silver ship, right? And all the droids are getting blasted off and stuff. You never really see the shields.
Yeah.
Is he
Well,
fixing the
actually,
shields
later in Star Wars, you don't see. Like, it's not like
You never
ships
see, like,
drive around with
deflector
bubbles
shields.
on
Yeah,
them, right?
yeah.
Like you never see deflector
You
shields.
sort of see it in the Last Jedi,
And-
but it's invisible.
Oh yeah.
It's
do you?
kind of invisible, but you see the.
Oh yeah, you
shots
do. Yeah,
going
you do.
off.
Yeah, you see them like
It might be a
disperse.
VFX thing, but
So, but also, the Death Star 2 was protected by a shield generator
never see
on
that.
Endor, and you never see that
Yeah,
either.
yeah.
And the Hoth base was also protected by a shield generator. You never see that.
I think generally the
So,
canon is you don't see them.
I think it's more fair to say almost
less
like
advanced.
a more primitive
Yeah,
shield
fact that you
generator
see them.
is that you do see
Right,
it, right?
right.
So
Because it's advantageous not to see it, right?
yeah, exactly. It's more because there's that moment where Lando's in the Millennium Falcon, and he's like the shields aren't down yet. You know, pull up, and then they like have to disperse
Right.
because if they
They
kept
wouldn't
flying,
know.
they would just crash into the
Explode,
shield
yeah.
generator and blow up.
Yeah, so it's actually it's actually more primitive. Here's a question though: why would a primitive people who use like slingshots and like arrows and like spears invent a shield that only works against energy weapons? Like if they
I
were
guess.
fighting against each other, that would be useless.
Yeah.
it only worked because they're fighting battle droids.
My guess is it's the best form of defense that they have, and they know that it works
Against
because
the Naboo, maybe.
and I think they have these things at the ready because they already make their homes out of them in the first place.
Right.
So I think like
So
it's
it's a
very
repurposed-
it's a repurposed technology. Yeah. I think maybe it was a possible happy accident that they realized that it blocks incoming blaster fire.
Yeah. Well, it could be.
Who knows? But I think it's actually quite ingenious of them to repurpose that tech for defensive purposes.
Right.
Okay, number 6, holograms. In the real world, communications technology continues to evolve at breakneck speed, but the same doesn't seem to apply to Star Wars Galaxy Far, Far Away. There, holograms, the main method of making and receiving calls and displaying information, has remained virtually static between the prequel and sequel trilogies, a gap of almost 60 years. The closest holographic hardware that has come to appreciable upgrade to an appreciable upgrade, is showcased in The Force Awakens. Here, Supreme Leader Snoke's oversized projection comes through devoid of the bluish tinge associated with technology.
This is Snoke?
Yeah,
It's
so
blue.
Snoke's... Yeah, he does have a blue
It's
suit.
entirely blue.
He's like got color to him,
Yeah, but they always
he
did.
has-
Princess Leia had like skin tone. Like she had red cheeks
Yeah.
and like white skin.
Yeah,
in that
exactly,
First one.
yeah.
And the rest of her were kind of blue.
I think the
Snoke
difference
was blue.
about that
Just wasn't
projection
all
was that it just
artifacty.
wasn't completely like R2D2 kind of
Yeah,
blue.
he didn't have artifacts and stuff, but that was because it was in a massive throne room, right? Like,
Yeah.
didn't the Emperor have like his chimpanzee eye? Remember he was when they
Yeah.
used remember the chimp
Yeah, the chimp eyes. Yeah,
the chimp eyes, like that one was good
and
quality.
even
it was
even in the
big.
redone one, I believe, like you do see color.
I think they just
Like,
have
you
the
see,
bad. I think they just have the bad quality ones are when it's like that one with the little spider legs that's walking around.
Yeah, yeah.
That one's bad quality, and when there's like the little pocket ones, the small ones, and the R2D2 ones.
But it makes me think that because those are such deployable tech,
But
it's like
it's
they
a good
would
point.
be crappier,
Why-
right?
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, there's probably like some Chinese knockoff ones in the galaxy that are just like worse, and then they don't bother. But it is a good question, like why wouldn't it be like extremely
better. Yeah.
far better in the newer ones?
Yeah.
Like why is it? They could have just made it more degraded in the prequels, just make them even worse in the prequels.
Yeah, they could have.
Like
Yeah.
just 2D something. 2D
Yeah, because
flat
there's
projection.
a screenshot here of
The red
Count
one.
Dooku's deployable hologram projector
Death Star.
with the plans to the Death Star, right?
Yeah, and it's very high quality.
So
and
it's pretty clear,
it's got
you know,
color.
pretty crisp.
Yeah.
The only time we see a hologram that good is in Return of the Jedi when they're looking at the plans of
Oh, yeah.
the second Death Star
Yeah.
on the Mon Calamari
Yeah,
ship.
it's got this here.
Yeah, and in Episode 4 we see Leia as a crappy little.
Well, I'll tell you
Fuzzy.
exactly what that was. It's like at the time when they made the original series, that's the technology
That's
they
what
had.
they had, yeah, that's
and
what
that's
they had.
now the look. That's what Star Wars looks like. It's the same reason why, even in the latest movies and in all the prequels, they have like the 70s style computer interfaces with like plugging like physical cables into things instead of like transmitting things wirelessly and like
Yeah.
using like actual data tapes and like plugging things in.
Yeah.
Because that's just what the 70s were. That's what people understood.
Oh yeah, and it's also worth noting that through the whole saga, you do still actually I don't know about this in the sequels, but in the original trilogy and in the prequels, they still use viewports. Like they still use screens
Computer screens,
on the walls and in
Yeah.
the ships and everything to have video conference calls almost. Like in the Phantom Menace, you do get one almost right away where Newt Gunray shows up on
Right.
the ship on the inside when Qui-Gon's like about to
That's right.
land
Yeah,
on
that's
that
just
thing.
like a TV.
Yeah, it's just a
Yeah.
TV screen, and then you get that again quite later on, even in the middle in Revenge of the Sith on Mustafar. The facilities there, they have not quite holograms. They're very fancy looking viewports, but they're still viewports. They still like touch screens and
Right.
with graphic interfaces and everything. And then you get that again later on in the original trilogy when Darth Vader's communing with officers on deck and stuff like that.
Right, yeah, you see
So
videos.
yeah, I think holograms have always been around. Viewports have always been around. I don't think either or supersede one another. I think they both have their uses. They both have their own cost.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know about you, but
It's
I
the
think
purpose
this
of
one.
the story, I think.
Yeah, it's whatever to serve the
The
purpose of the story
storytelling.
for sure. Yeah, I don't think it has anything to do with holograms being too advanced for the prequels. So, all right, number 5, the Millennium Falcon. This one is, I just can't deal with this one.
Okay, tell me.
This one, okay, this one. So, are you aware of the Easter egg of?
Oh, when it shows up in the episode 3 or something.
Yes. Okay,
Yeah,
you know exactly what I'm talking about. So, this entire thing is based off of an Easter
Based
egg.
off that one thing that some VFX artist was like, I got a cool idea. How would I put the Millennium Falcon in?
Yeah, exactly,
Okay.
exactly. Okay, so let me read this little piece here for you. Full disclosure, this entry is more than a little harsh. So this guy's like, he's like ripping this one to shreds. How else would you describe taking Revenge of the Sith to task over a minor background Easter egg that was intended to amuse eagle-eyed fans? But part of the fun of Star Wars is in poring over its many little details, and the YT-1300 Corellian freighters that can be glimpsed docked at the Galactic Senate building in Episode 3 is problematic. Why? Well, the saga's most iconic vehicle, the Millennium Falcon, is a YT-1300 model light freighter. Based off of the YT-1300 seen in the Revenge of the Sith, the Falcon is therefore been around at least half a century by the time The Force Awakens goes down. And official tie-in media suggests it's closer to 90 years old at that point. Even with a million modifications, are we seriously supposed to believe that the Falcon is good enough to survive dogfights with far newer starships? Sounds like an impossibly good make of a starship if you ask us. Okay, so if we take those, there's two separate paragraphs there. So if you just take the Easter egg alone as a reason to say, okay, why is that even there?
I just see it as like the semi truck of the day. Like semi tractor trailers have not changed that much in the last 50 years. Like the Peterbilt 359 that you see on the street with over 1 million kilometers is still running strong, and they still make vehicles almost exactly the same. They still have the same amount of wheels and the same design structure. It's slightly different fittings and extras and stuff like that, but it's the same thing, right? This is just a freighter. It's just a big freighter that's meant to carry things from one place to another. There's no reason why they needed to change the design. The design was fine, and then the Millennium Falcon was just a newer model of it.
Yeah. No, that's a good point, actually. I didn't even think of that. Okay, the beef that I have with this is that this article was written this year. So if you think very hard...
Yeah, like they watched Solo, right?
Exactly. Okay,
like
so I'm sure they watched
Solo.
It's clearly, at this point in time, in the canon of Star Wars, it's clearly not the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah. Because the Millennium Falcon was brand new. It's just another one. It's just another semi.
It's just another Corellian freighter, right? Like these things were not unique.
It's not a big rig truck.
Yeah, and
there's
like
a million of them, and people will deck them out. People do different things with them. Like, who cares?
I mean, I'll throw them a bone here and say, okay, it looks kind of close to the Millennium Falcon. But I mean, like E.T. shows up in the Phantom Menace. Like you can't tell me they just weren't having fun. Like you know, they were probably the guys at ILM were probably exactly hey, like let's throw this in, right? And then they probably just threw it in. So anyway, that's I have a huge problem with that whole thing. But okay, the second part is that it's getting like they're getting at the fact that if this ship was around hypothetically in the prequel era, how come it can keep up with ships now, which is like in The Last Jedi and Force Awakens?
Did hyperdrive and all that stuff actually change that much? Like, you're going faster than light, right?
I think the only thing that maybe changed about it is that now smaller ships have more access to getting a hyperdrive, but it's saying
if,
that
those
it
Naboo,
can't,
those Naboo freighters, can they go to hyperdrive? I don't remember. The small Naboo fighters.
No, I don't think.
Okay,
they
but
can,
those small, those silver, ships that the Queen rides around in, those things are...
I mean that's roughly the size. Like Senator
bigger.
Padme's...
I mean, they are bigger, but they're not a ton bigger. I just don't think that, I think once you're going faster than the speed of light, it doesn't really matter, and it's crazy if you're going faster.
In this little piece here, he's saying, is the Falcon still good enough? Can it be really believed that the Falcon is still good enough to survive dogfights? So more than just the hyperdrive. Is it believable that the Falcon can sustain itself in
I guess
battle?
my point is that, in Phantom Menace, they've already achieved space travel, interstellar travel, and, very maneuverable ships. They've got it. They've already done it, right? And all that's going to get better is, the expertise of the pilots, right? And Han Solo was just a better pilot.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, and he's had a ton of modifications made to that ship.
That's all it is, yeah.
Yeah, not only does it perform with extreme agility, but he's got a ton of weapons on there that really maintain its defense.
And it's meant to be a junky old ship. It's meant to be an old ship.
Yeah, so many times do they say this hunk of junk.
Yeah, it's meant to be a rusty old ship because it was built then.
Yeah, so first of all, I mean, because of the canonicity of Solo, this shouldn't even be in this list.
That's still 20 years.
But
it's a 20-year-old Honda Civic you're driving around in.
Yeah, so super common. I don't. This thing has double the reason not to be in this list. But okay, number 4. This one's a bit more of an obscure one.
Are we getting up in value? These his priority list?
I think this is his priority list.
Leon, I want to see what you got for me on number 1.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, let's hear number 3.
All right, number 4. Seismic charges.
Those are those ones that go
Yeah.
For the audience, I was miming the shape of the explosion before I made the sound.
Yeah. So
Okay, seismic charges, yeah, those are great.
just building it up.
Yeah, that was great.
So one of the most memorable moments during the interstellar dogfight between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Jango Fett in Attack of the Clones, which
just did it,
really,
Josh.
I really like that scene
I
actually.
just did.
Yeah. Sees Fett unleash seismic charges against his Jedi foe. The results are nothing short of spectacular as the explosives shear through the surrounding asteroid field with devastating ease. This leaves us wondering why these babies never crop up in the original trilogy. Take the Empire's pursuit of the Millennium Falcon through the asteroid field in The Empire Strikes Back. Compared to what we've seen seismic charges do in a similar scenario, the TIE bomber's proton bombs are pitiful by comparison. Are seismic charges too advanced to be in the prequels?
That's such a retarded thing to be on the list. It's obviously just VFX. They couldn't do it.
Okay, that's definitely like the number one reason.
Of course.
The
Like,
other-
George would have had that if he could have.
For in-story reasons,
Okay,
though.
but let's jump in.
For,
Yeah,
if,
let's
if,
go
if
into
we were
canon.
to
Let's
just like
pretend that
accept
yes,
the way
yes,
that this
okay,
is,
okay.
right?
I wouldn't have put it on the list for that reason, but okay, let's say that it's on the list.
Number one reason is seismic charges are super deadly, right? Like they just rip
To
apart
everyone.
those asteroids.
Yeah.
What's the one thing that Vader wanted that entire movie?
He wanted the ship. He
Is-
wanted them alive.
Why would he want to blow it up?
Yeah.
Right? Like Mr. Miller, come on, man. Like watch
Come on,
watch
bro.
your favorite trilogy once again. So yeah, Vader wanted the Millennium Falcon the entire film. Like he was always after that. He doesn't want to blow it up.
Yeah.
I mean, like
He says, like,
yeah.
I want that ship.
Okay, and the second thing that I thought of was, again, it goes back to like how cheap the Empire is.
Yeah, he's a bounty hunter. Like his
Yeah.
job is to like be a badass who kills people.
Yeah.
And he gets paid a lot of money to do it, and so he spends a lot of money on the highest tech, the best tech from like the weirdest planets where he gets these special things you can only get in this one spot. The Empire is making like dirt cheap weapons and cheap armor and as much as they can, as fast as they can, churning it out. They're not making specialized weaponry for stormtroopers.
Yeah. No, exactly. So that's number 4. Number 3, I have real beef with this one too. 3PO units. Star Wars mainstays 3PO and R2-D2 aren't exactly spring chickens. Indeed, The Phantom Menace establishes that both were online 32 years prior to the events of A New Hope, so they're clearly verging on obsolete by the time we reach the original trilogy. Or are they? Certainly, C-3PO doesn't seem to have been overtaken by newer models in the generation since he was manufactured. On the contrary, 3PO units are commonplace in episodes 4 through 6, and not just among the resources-strapped rebellion. So either protocol droid technology has seriously plateaued, or the 3PO model, I believe he just means protocol droid models, were implausibly ahead of his time.
Well, it's the same thing. He said it exactly. They plateaued. It's just like the dogfighting thing. It's exactly the same as the stormtrooper armor. Armor is armor. And like an intelligent droid that understands, was it 300 million like forms of communication?
Yeah.
Like, do you need more?
Do you need 6 million? Oh, actually, no,
Oh,
he
there's 6
does.
million, yeah,
he
6
does.
million.
In The Force Awakens,
He
he's
learned
like
some more.
doubled his language
He learned some
database
more.
or something. Like,
He's like,
yeah.
I'm fluent in 6 million forms of communication, and then he says more later on, right? He's like 12 million or something
Yes.
in The Force Awakens.
Just
Like,
constantly getting
I'm fluent
smarter.
in 12 million forms of communication.
Yeah. So, but okay, the problem that I have with this one is, okay, they have plateaued for sure. Like, it's a technology that's reached its peak.
They're basically humans.
They're basically humans. Yeah.
I mean, it's literally Anthony Daniels in a suit, so.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a British butler. Like, but what he's saying here is the Phantom Menace establishes that both were online 32 years prior to the events of A New Hope. So are they? They're clearly verging on obsolete by the time we reach the original trilogy.
That's a huge
or are they?
assumption to
Like,
make.
that's a huge assumption to make.
Yeah,
I think
why
like
would it
at
be
this point in
obsolete?
time, I mean, don't forget, like 3PO was made out of junk.
Yeah.
Like Anakin built him out of.
Yeah, and I assume that
garbage.
like it was like the fittings that went over top of them were like from a kit. It
Yeah.
was like a common kit that everyone had.
Yeah,
And whoever finished
common
it.
shell plates. Like,
yeah, and when
just
Lars
like
finished it or whatever.
it wasn't
It
until
was just
he
a kit,
got.
and then it was spray painted gold.
Yeah, and he wasn't. It wasn't until he was serving Padme in the Senate that they plated him with gold just to
Gold.
fit in, right? Just to
Right.
fit in with society. But even at the Lars homestead, like he finally got his
Which is
final
great.
final fittings, but they were super old and rusty. So like at this point in time, like in the prequels, 3PO units have been around even longer than just the prequels. So
Yeah, because there's like that white one or the silver one that they see.
Yeah,
in
there's
the waiting room.
yeah,
Right?
in the Phantom Menace,
The
there's a
very
silver
first-
one.
yeah, the
Yeah,
very
in the
first
very
scene,
first
yeah.
scene. Yeah. So
But why is it? Why are they assuming that that's obsolete?
I don't really know.
Just
I
because
think,
computers go obsolete now in like 2 years doesn't mean that happens.
yeah,
Always. Like if it's already that advanced, it's probably not going to go obsolete.
yeah, exactly. Like
Clearly,
and they can.
it didn't. And they were basically humans, so
I think they did. I don't know. Maybe is he expecting
I
them
think you
to
have
like
to
fly or something?
Yeah.
Like what are you expecting here, Mr.
I
Miller?
think you have to suspend your belief for the rest of it and just realize it's a sci-fi movie that's like they're meant to be like quirky, funny robot people that like
Yeah.
we as an audience have to laugh with them and be like, oh, ha, it's funny because it's cute and he's a robot. But like, of course, yeah, they could make it indiscernible from a human, make an android that's completely realistic, but that's not interesting or fun or
Yeah.
entertaining.
Exactly. Okay, so number 2, Darth Vader's life support system. Now this one's a bit of a trick question, so don't jump to any conclusions at first. But over the course of its 140-minute runtime, Revenge of the Sith plays host to not one but 2 walking hospital beds, Darth Vader and General Grievous. Yet while both mechanized menaces rely on mobile life support systems to survive, Vader's breathing apparatus, only a few years older than Grievous's own, is markedly better. True, both Grievous's alien physiology and severity of his injuries differed significantly from his Sith Lord counterpart. It's presumably harder to keep a pile of organs alive than it is a dismembered torso. Even so, aside from his trademark heavy breathing, Vader otherwise functions unimpeded, whereas the droid general's body is constantly racked by hacking coughs. Our diagnosis: Grievous's galactic healthcare plan was terrible, or Vader had the inside track on medical technology well beyond what should strictly have been available to him at the time.
So you mean like the Supreme Chancellor funding a medical science project versus some like weirdo alien guy from another planet?
Yeah,
Is that the issue here?
that's one way to put it.
Literally the Senate, like the
Yeah.
literal Senate.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and
Or
that's just
some
it, because in
droid
the in the original like 2D Clone Wars, I believe Grievous is like so in Star Wars Legends, like in non-canon material. Grievous didn't have a problem with his breathing apparatus until Mace Windu like force choked him and destroyed some of his interior.
larynx.
Yeah, and then that led right into the Revenge of the Sith.
General Kenobi!
Yeah, so that's like one thing, but like when they did the 3D animated show,
Yeah.
they established the fact that it wasn't due to injuries, that he had the suit made for him, and it wasn't the suit that necessarily had him, or it wasn't Mace Windu that had him like coughing and hacking and all that. So from the get-go, General Grievous has the suit by choice. At one point in one of the episodes, he says that, or his droid butler basically, establishes the fact that he voluntarily put himself forward for the surgery for the upgrades.
Oh, there you go.
Because he wanted to keep up, I guess, with
He wanted to be
combat
able
Jedi.
to- He wanted to
right?
be able to have a Jedi lightsaber belt.
Yeah,
Just click
yeah,
on the
exactly.
lightsabers.
So I think maybe the coughing is just like a side effect of that.
Right.
But, like they're
But,
saying,
so are they saying that he thinks that Darth Vader's suit is far more advanced than?
they're saying that
Grievous?
Darth Vader's suit is far more advanced of a life support system than General Grievous's.
So they
But
think that General Grievous is worse.
they
'cause he's
think
far more mobile.
that General Grievous's suit is a life support system, and that's where the trick question is, because I don't think General Grievous obviously the suit's keeping him
Okay,
alive.
but even if it is a life
But-
support system, is Grievous is not far more advanced? Like he's
I would
able to
say
like
so, yeah.
he's able to like jump and like move.
He's got
he's far more
talons and-
mobile. He's strong. Like when
Yeah.
Obi-Wan punches him or like hits him or whatever, he's like solid metal like
Yeah, for
monster.
sure.
And you can see that like he has way less organic matter than Darth Vader does. Darth Vader's like just a burnt human.
Yeah.
And he could barely walk.
Yeah, he's got like cybernetic limbs,
Yeah.
which have been around for a while at this point, like in Star Wars history.
But like Grievous is like just a heart and like a eye socket in a robot shield.
yeah. So, I mean, they're basically saying that Vader's breathing apparatus is only a few years older than Grievous's own, but is markedly better. I don't even think they're the same on the same playing field.
Yeah,
like, I think
totally different
Vader's suit is like a life support system, yeah, but like Grievous, even though he's being held alive by the suit, it's more of an upgrade. And
yeah, it's more like combat upgrades, like
yeah, and the side effect is that he's hacking away.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was also just like a design choice to have him resemble Vader's breathing apparatus, like with the grill on his mouth and everything.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I believe that was said in Revenge of the Sith. In one of the VFX behind the scenes,
they talked about having the same.
Yeah, they talked about the
grill.
concept art of General Grievous, and they did talk about that. So, okay, here's the number one on the list.
Leon.
Just wait for it. All right, Slave One.
Mr. Miller. Slave One.
Slave One.
Well, okay, first question: was it supposed to be the same ship, like repainted, or are they two different ships?
It is
because one's blue.
In canon, it is the same ship that's been repainted.
Okay. Let's hear it.
Okay, a heavily modified patrol and attack craft. Slave One was the best in class when Jango Fett was at the helm during the Clone Wars. When Fett kicked the bucket in Attack of the Clones, his son, or to be more precise, clone, Boba, inherited Slave One. And it's not surprising that Fett Jr. relied on his old man's souped-up starship to kickstart his own bounty hunting career. But why is he still flying it during The Empire Strikes Back? Think about it. Slave One is over 20 years old by this point. Surely Boba should have traded it in for something a bit more modern. Yes, it was his father's ship, but Boba already indulges whatever traces of sentimentality reside within his ruthless soul by wearing Jango's armor into battle. So if we rule out the mawkishness on Boba's part, and only remaining rationale for him to keep Slave One is that it's got to be a way better ship than any other ship in the prequel era has the right to be.
So, like, he's just saying that if your dad dies and leaves you his Corvette, just because it's not as fast as a Lamborghini, you should get rid of it.
Get rid of it.
Yeah. Get rid of it.
For something newer, yeah.
Oh, but I'm not allowed to say that. I have to think of an actual reason why. No, I think that's probably the reason,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I mean,
he
like,
wants to
for
be
sure.
his father.
But here, like, the other thing is, like, as we've already gone over seismic charges,
Yeah.
like, that ship has had some major upgrades.
Yeah.
And kind of like the Millennium Falcon, it holds up. Like, over time, it was
a good ship back then.
It keeps
and
up.
It's still a good ship.
Yeah, it's still a
Yeah.
good ship. Yeah, so why would he get rid
It's
of
the
it?
same thing as the Corvette. Like, the Corvette still does its job. It's still a fast car. Just because it doesn't have, like, steering assist and, like, lane assist and all that stuff,
Yeah.
and all those fancy things,
features.
and computers and stuff, it doesn't mean that you still can't drive it fast on the highway.
Yeah.
Right? It's the same as Millennium Falcon, same as this. You can still drive it fast. You can still do what needs to be done.
Yeah. Well, and cars are cars. Cars are meant for driving.
Yeah,
They're
and
meant
these are the
to drive
cars of
fast.
the
Yeah.
galaxy.
These are the cars of the galaxy.
And this is your dad's cool car that he left you. When he
Yeah.
died.
Well, and it was designed for his career, which Boba's now taken over.
doing the same thing,
So he's
yeah.
doing the same job. So which means all the modifications that were made to that ship are still relevant to Boba. And I'm assuming that more modifications have been made over the years. Like, I want to bring up Clone Wars again because at one point in the show, Boba is running with a few other bounty hunters. And at one point, Aura Singh, who's a bounty hunter at the time, takes control of the ship, and an accident happens when Ahsoka Tano, a character, jumps up onto the viewport, and she deflects a couple blaster bolts back into the cockpit, and then she, I guess, catches the control panel with her lightsaber or something. Ahsoka jumps off to safety, and Aura Singh goes down with Slave One and crashes it. And you don't really see like how damaged the ship is. All you see is it kind of disappear behind these mountains and just kind of plummet into a cloud of smoke and fire sort of thing. So you assume that it's taken some pretty heavy hits. But later on in the show, and that's when it was blue and green. Later on in the show, a character called Hondo Onaka, who is now quite popular at Galaxy's Edge in Disneyland. He's like one of the host characters there. He wears this like red robe with a green, vest or whatever.
Yeah, I think I saw him. Yeah.
Yeah, so he actually, it's on the this accident happens on Florum, which is the planet that his pirate base is on. And like any pirate, like Hondo's got a garage.
Yeah.
And Hondo's pirate crew salvages Slave One and puts it back together again and gives it a paint job, which resembles himself. And Hondo's full of himself. Like that's kind of his character. He's like, you know, he loves what he does. He's a funny guy, but he's essentially like got the core paint job on it for that classic burgundy red and green that we see it later on in the film.
Okay.
I'm assuming that when they put the ship back together, they made it better than it was before.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So there's that, and then Boba takes it eventually and makes his own modifications. I'm just filling in the gaps here.
Well, that's good writing, right?
Yeah. So I mean, like, not only has it been like souped up, but it's still a very relevant ship to drive, and it's got sentimentality.
Yeah.
It does the job. So yeah.
And as with all of this stuff, like the saga begins in episode 1 where everything's already super advanced. Like,
yeah.
It's not going to get that much better.
Yeah.
Without becoming cinematically uninteresting.
Yeah, it's definitely at a peak already.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the technology is
Things
already
need to
at
have
peak.
flaws, otherwise we won't relate to them at all.
Yeah, exactly. So, anyway, so that's the list from screenrant.com. And
Is this guy gonna get mad at us for?
I don't know. I don't know if he ever will. He might not even
no hard
listen to
feelings,
this.
Leon. We just needed content.
Yeah, exactly. just looking for something to talk about. So, anyway.
No, that was fun.
That was good. So thanks for coming on to the Escape Pod.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, great.
I'll try not to bump my head on the way out.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Calvin, for coming over, hanging out with me, and just chatting Star Wars on the Escape Pod right here with our listeners. And it's really getting off the ground at the moment, so you know it's even more special to have you as our second guest here, and you know just to talk hobby with a good friend. So yeah, thank you so much. And for all you listeners out there. We're on Twitter. Twitter handle is SW Escape Podcast, and our email is theescapepod@outlook.com. If you have any friends that love Star Wars, maybe share this podcast with them. You can find it on Stitcher, Deezer, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Google Podcasts, Castbox, wherever podcasts are found. And if there's a platform that you use that we're not featured on, please let us know. And we'll do our best to get on whichever platform is most convenient to you. So thanks again for tuning in to Star Wars Escape Pod. I'm your host, Josh. Today your co-host was Calvin. And looking forward to having you again. May the Force be with you.